Ladies and gentlemen, she's almost here, Janelle Brulin. Let's give her a nice hand.
Well, hello everyone. Hello. Glad to be here. Are you living your best life? Do you know what your best life looks like? And is it out of reach? Or do some of you not even know what that best life could look like? This is a personal question that each of us have to ask ourselves. But the good news is that each one of us can identify and then make the decision to live a life of joy and abundance, a life of significance, one where we're living the best version of ourselves and we're contributing to those things that matter most to us. So I think everyone wants to live their best life. So then how come so many people aren't? If you talk to many adults today, even those ones that on the outside look like they have it all together, are often dissatisfied and even a bit frustrated. You can make the decision to live your best life. I have worked with a number of CEOs and business leaders. And one of the things that I've often found is one of the big problems is that somewhere along the way, people seem to lose their sense of direction and they begin to drift. I can best illustrate this with a story. My husband, Graham, and I live in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, and we live near the water, and there's nothing like going out on a warm summer evening out on the ocean in a kayak. Who else loves to get out on the ocean around here? So we actually have some Facebook competitions of who can take the best sunset photos. And one night after dinner, Graham and I thought, boy, this looks like a perfect night to go out for a little cruise. Let's take the kayaks out for a sunset cruise. So we headed down to the beach and we pulled the kayaks out. We got our life jackets on and off we went. And for Graham, of course, for those who know him, everything outdoors is exercise for him. But for me, I do a lot more gazing than paddling, so it's more of a sunset experience for me. But if you stop paying attention, you can get caught up by the tides. You need to be watching when you're out on the ocean. You need to be paying attention. And it was one of those beautiful nights where there's just a little bit of clouds in the sky, and it was one of those nights the sun was coming down, and you were going to see it go all the way until it looked like it disappeared below the waves, and the colors were coming up and streaming through the sky. And all of a sudden I looked up, and I realized that I was way further offshore than I ever meant to be. The shore was a really long ways away. And near our home in Birch Bay where we live, there's a thoroughfare where all the big tankers and the cruise ships go through. Imagine my little kayak facing a 14-story-foot cruise ship. Not where I wanted to be. Well, we got ourselves safely back to shore that night. But what it reminds me of, this kayak experience, is what our lives can get like. We can get so caught up in the busyness of our lives, working, running a company, raising a family, helping out our communities, that we start living on automatic. We're living on automatic and not really paying attention to where we're going. And sometimes it happens quite quickly, but often over several years. And we wake up one day and we discover that we're in a completely different place than we ever expected we'd be. We never intended to gain those extra 30 pounds. They may have come on with habits that had been formed over the years. We never expected to end up in that estranged relationship, or maybe even a divorce. Perhaps because we put that person that we said was most important in the back seat to other things. And what about those kids? For those of you who are parents in the room, when those kids were going to be born, you were so excited they were coming, and you weren't going to miss a thing. You're going to be there for all those important moments. And then you blink, and they're grown up. They're graduating. And maybe you've missed some of those important moments. So what happens when we're living automatic is we end up going along and we're cruising along our way, and maybe 10, 20, even 30 years later, we wake up and we're in a place that we never expected to be. So how does this happen? Living on automatic happens because of habits that have formed over the years that end up controlling much of what we do. Habits are things that we do with ease we don't even think about. Think about your commute home from work. You never think about that. We're creatures of habits, and you likely take the same route home every single day. I remember when we moved to a new home in our community, and I really had to think about it because it was quite close to our other home, and I needed to make sure that I ended up in the right place. And one night I was thinking about my work day and what I needed to do with the kids when I got home, and I got pulled up in front of my garage, and there were some people out there, like, what are you doing in front of my house? And, oh yeah, I don't live here anymore. So this happens. Ever rearrange the drawers in your kitchen and you go to the old silverware drawer 10 times to open it up before you go, oh yeah, it's not there anymore. You get the idea. Well, we don't want to be living on automatic. In my own pursuit of success, I've become overwhelmed. You familiar with this picture? I've discovered there's a pervasive lie in the world today. And it's really a lie that's become an epidemic because so many people have bought into it and they don't even know it. It's the success lie. And entrepreneurs and business professionals everywhere have bought into the lie that success means more and more and more. We have to be on all the time. We have to take on more projects. We have to work longer, harder, sacrificing everything, even our families, our relationships, or our health. Well, I'm so passionate about this topic because I've been there. I've been overworked, overcommitted, and overwhelmed, and maybe you can relate. And I discovered that there's another way, and I want to show you how. So my friends, what success lies do you believe? Do you think that you have to work longer and harder? Do you have to be on all the time? Is there not enough time in your day? Do you look at busyness as a value? Does it look like everyone has it together but you? Have you been hurt? Do you feel like you can't change sometimes? When I realized and I became clear that I was buying into the success lies, I had to make the choice. And I decided that I did not have to live that way, that I didn't have to be on the treadmill that society said was the way to success, and I was going to take my life back. The truth is, the choice is yours, and yours alone to live your best life. This is the keynote here in a sentence, so if you're taking notes, I encourage you to write this down. The truth is, the choice is yours, and yours alone to live your best life. You can do it too. You can make the decision to take your life back, but it's not easy. It first requires a choice. You need to realize that the life that you're living right now isn't really working for you, and it's certainly not the one that you're intended to have. Realizing this is incredibly freeing and empowering, because once you discover this, then you can take steps to create that best life. That life that you've always wanted. So in our time together today, I wanted to share 3 key takeaways. I want to teach you the mindset shift so that you can overcome overwhelm and live your best life. So we're going to talk about, instead of living on automatic, that you can live with intention. That you need to lead yourself first or get out of your own way. And you need to focus on the important. I want to share some strategies with you to help you and your teams become laser focused on the important things and to be able to crush your goals. So let's get started. So first, instead of living automatic, we can choose to live with intention. We can live with intention. So in order to do this, we have to look at those areas of our lives where we've been living on automatic. So there's really 7 main areas that make up our life that we need to really control and we need to focus on to make sure that we're doing well and living that full and abundant life. And it's physical, mental, spiritual, our family, our relationships, our career, our financial, and fun and recreation. Now, I know that all of you in this room are high achievers. So oftentimes we can set that bar really high for ourselves. If we're looking at those life areas, I know that there's some of those that you're doing really well, that comes easy for you. Maybe for you it's that professional, that work side. But if you're doing really well and you've had success and even maybe exponential success in your work, you still may find yourself wanting because you left these other 7 areas aside. So how do we stop living on automatic? We need to evaluate these 7 areas of our life and rate them from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, with the goal of having 10s in these areas, a really nice, round, holistic approach to a full life. So for you, think about what are those areas that you're living on automatic? What are those areas that you've kind of found yourself where you don't want to be? And maybe you think you're doing pretty well right now, and if that's the case, then how can you prevent yourself from getting off track? Because we're human and we're going to get stuck. So how can we work on that and make sure that we keep those 7 areas as a focus? So you don't have to live overworked and overwhelmed. I talked about how you can have these areas that are out of whack, and when you do that, you find yourself in a gap from where you are versus where you want to be. And by living intentionally, you can close that gap. But another thing that's important for you to do to live intentionally is you need to look deep within and understand what are those most important priorities that you want to live by. And it's going to be different for each one of us. Stop looking at what everybody else is doing and comparing to what everybody else is doing, and give yourself permission to live your own version of success. At the end of people's lives, they often have regrets. And one of the top regrets is, I wish I had the courage to live the life true to myself versus what others expected of me. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd spent more time on those important relationships. I wish I'd allowed myself to be happier. So think about for yourself, what is true success for you? What is that version of success that's important to you? Establish those priorities, and then that's your foundation. Those values are your foundation to build your life upon. So live with intention. Point 2, get out of your own way. We have to learn to lead ourselves first, and that's so hard. Aren't we the hardest person to lead? We're all leaders in our companies, and you're all here because you've had some success. And we must build ourselves as leaders. We need to be stronger leaders. We need to grow in our leadership so then we can grow our teams. We're going to have stronger teams, and we're going to have stronger companies if we learn to get out of our own way. So what's getting in the way of your success? Because you have to figure that out. Sometimes we just get stuck. Sometimes we don't even know really why we're stuck. So I have a little video here to share with you to point that out.
There's this pressure, and sometimes it feels like it's right up on me, and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless, and I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
You do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to hit the nail.
See, it's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. Oh, my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
My sweaters are snaked.
Really hard. Come on, if you would just
Sweaters are snaked.
Makes me laugh, but I've seen it so many times. So sometimes we don't know we're stuck. So if that happens for you and you don't know where you're getting in your own way, ask one of your team members at work, or better yet, ask a spouse, and they'll certainly be honest with you. So how do we get out of our own way? Another issue that we get in our own way is sometimes with our self-image and how we look at ourselves. So who do you see when you look in the mirror? How we see ourselves is often how we portray ourselves to the outside world. And I love this photo of a kitten who looks in the mirror and sees a lion. If we see ourselves as small and not capable of very much, we're really going to limit ourselves and what we're capable of. If that's how we show up as leaders at work, we're not going to be the person that we are meant to be. But if instead we look in the mirror and we see ourselves as strong and confident and competent and capable, what we can do will be amazing. We're going to want to invest in ourselves. And we're going to be much more stronger. We're going to be able to meet our maximum potential. But so often we get stuck with comparing ourselves to others or beating ourselves up with negative, critical self-talk. And much of this has been ingrained since we were children. Did you know that by the time you're 17 years old, you've been told, no, you can't, 150,000 times? You've been told, yes, you can, 5,000 times. That's 30 no's for every yes. That's a powerful belief of I can't. Now, for some of us, it's easier to let go of this negative lens than others. For some of us, it's a constant battle with this inner critic. So I want to give you some tips of how we can tame that inner critic in our lives. The first is shifting our mindset to the positive. Our brains are so powerful. We can control the thoughts that we're having, and we can have positive ones. Many of our battles are won and lost in the mind. What we think is what we say, is what we do, and ends up being our results. So it starts here. So maybe over years where we've had negative messages we've given ourselves, or maybe some really tough experiences in our life, the neural pathways of our brains have been hardened in this negativity. But we can change that. And it's by first becoming aware of that negative thought, and we can grab it, we can hold it captive, and we can make it positive. We can fill our minds with positive things. Because did you know that your brains can't think of a positive and negative thought at the same time? They can't. It just shifts from one to the other. So if you capture that negative thought, you can make it a positive thought. Another way is to guard your self-talk. Do you realize that you talk to yourself all day long? Some of us, we hear each other talking out loud, but we're talking in our heads all the time. So what were your first waking thoughts today? What were your thoughts over the last 24 hours? Were they positive and affirming, or were they critical? So be kind to yourself. Think about when you have a problem that happens, that comes up at work. Do you think, all right, we're going to figure this out, we're going to move through this together? Or do you think, oh, this happened to me again, this always happens, I never get it right? So we need to stop that negative self-talk. We need to watch for it, we need to guard it. And when we're having those negative thoughts, we need to make sure that we're changing them to affirming things. And do this with your teams so that you can capture yourself. You can say, we're going to have positive talk around here. And so if you're catching me in that negative space and that negative mindset, call me on it and do that for each other. So more about that. How do you show up? at work? How do your teams see you? Are you showing up with that positive mindset? Or are you complaining or frustrated with that customer? And is that coming out in your behaviors? Because do you know you're all leaders in your organization? And even though it's a heavy mantle to carry, everyone is looking at how you're showing up. Everyone's going to mirror your behavior, and your actions are so much louder than everyone else's. So what example do you want to create? So one response that I've used that's been so helpful to me in the good times and especially the challenging times of life is the power of optimism. And the most challenging time that we had in our business is when we went into the deep recession, and I had a chance to use this power. Our business was going along, everything was going well, we had wonderful client partnerships, a great team, we were growing, and then the recession hit. And overnight, the world changed. Our construction division dropped 30% overnight. The clients that we've been growing with and doing so well with were all of a sudden struggling. We had our own team members who had family members that had lost jobs. And there was a spirit of fear over everyone. And I have to admit, it was a scary time to be a business owner. And I had some sleepless nights wondering about how am I going to get my company through this? It was such a unique time. How was I going to put the payroll together? How was I going to put food not only on my own table, but all the family members that called MSNW their home? And at one time when it felt like things were really crashing down around us, I too found myself paralyzed with fear. How was I going to get the company through this? And one of my managers pulled me aside and he said to me, Janelle, you're always the one that puts the wind in our sails, but you're also the one that can take it out. And wow, was that a wake-up call for me. And I made the fundamental decision that day that I was going to put on that positive mindset and that we were going to do whatever it took to not only survive, but thrive through the recession, through this difficult time. And so I made the decision that I was going to show up with confidence, with courage and positivity every single day. And sometimes that was a daily choice, and sometimes it was an hourly choice, but that's what I did. And guess what happened? Everyone else started to feel better too. Everyone else started to act with confidence and positivity. And you know what happens when your brain, when you switch from that negative to positive, you clear it out and you become more creative. And we got together as a team and we figured out how we needed to pivot to get ourselves through that difficult time. And we came through that time. And we're doing well today and we're still thriving, and I believe a lot of it has to do with a positive mindset. So how do you show up? One of the things that I needed to learn is that we are not Superman or Superwoman. And it's so important to discover this because it's so easy to get overwhelmed and pack things on higher and higher and more and more. And I actually discovered this on a trip I went to one of these conferences, which I always look so forward to. We have such a great group here at BSCAI, and I look forward to the times we get together and get to share stories, to build each other up and talk about new ideas that we're going to put into practice when we get back home. So I was on the flight, headed out to one of the conferences across the coast, and I was really ready for it. And I thought this would be some great me time to hunker down and catch up on some business reading. And I put my headphones on and I got ready to get some work done. And a little while later, I looked up and I saw the flight attendant I had kind of pulling the cart out a few rows ahead of me. I thought, oh, great, I'm getting kind of hungry. I think I'm going to order something to eat. Maybe I'll even treat myself to a cocktail. And all of a sudden, I looked down, and in front of me, I had a drink and a plate of food. And I looked, and the flight attendant was down several rows behind me. And I didn't remember any of it. I didn't remember her stopping by my row. I didn't remember her asking me what I wanted to drink or eat. I didn't remember taking my tray out, and certainly didn't remember the food being delivered. And it scared me, especially when I realized that that wasn't the first time that I'd had a memory lapse, that it had been going on for a little while. And coupled with that, I'd been having these headaches that had been getting annoying, but I'd kind of been ignoring them because I had other things that I needed to do. But it scared me enough that I'm going to get that checked out when I get home because I need to get that fixed. We don't have time for this, right? So I went to the conference, and then when I got back home, I scheduled an appointment with my doctor. And I have a family doctor I've had for many years since I was a little girl. And my first experience with him wasn't a great one because I grew up on a family farm, and I decided to run over my foot with a three-wheeler and broke all my toes. So my first memory was having him reset those, which wasn't so fun. But he knew me well, and so he asked how I was doing and why I was there. And I said, "Oh, Dr. Alexandra, I'm doing so well. I do have a lot on my plate right now. I'm working a lot of hours because the business is growing, but everything's going great. The kids are great. I'm carting them over everywhere, and every minute I'm not at work, I'm off carting them from one activity to the other. But I know this is just a season of life, and it's going to get better." And so he did an exam and got some blood work. That all came back clean. And he was concerned enough that he ordered a brain scan. And he said this will probably take about a week or so to get the results back. Well, for any of you who's been through health tests and have to wait for results, you know that that time between when you get that scan and when you get the results is excruciating. And I went from 1 minute that, oh, everything is just fine, to surely I must be dying, and who's going to take care of my little girls? Well, about a week went by, and the doctor called me back in. And I sat down in his chair, and he said to me, "Janelle, I have good news. I know you were worried, and you thought maybe you had a tumor, and your brain's clear, your scan came back clear. You don't need to have surgery on your brain, but you do need to do drastic surgery on your schedule, because the life you're living and the pace that you're on right now is not sustainable." And he was right. I had gotten stuck myself. I had gotten to a place where I had a health issue. Here I was teaching life mastery, and I thought everything was going great. And here I had this health issue that was going on, that I was just ignoring that part of my life. I was doing everything to take care of everybody else except for myself. I was dying inside trying to be Superwoman. So I had to make a change, and it was time to get my priorities straight and to take better care of myself. So as part of that, I started to do rejuvenation time, to take vacations. And it's so important because here we are with these devices, and we're so addicted to these things. We have to be on all the time, and we need to learn to unplug. If I were to come and get one of your phones from you and I was to bring it up here, I know your heart would be racing while I had it away from you. It's true. So I had to learn to unplug. In my CEO group recently, I asked them, how many of you in the last year have taken at least a week's vacation? So I'm going to ask you guys that today too. How many in the last year have taken at least a week off? Good, quite a few of you. You know what? Everybody in my group raised their hand. They were doing pretty good. But then I had a second question. In that week that you took vacation, how much of that time were you completely disconnected from work, unplugged from work, meaning you didn't call and check in, you didn't check emails, you didn't work on any business projects, and you didn't do any business reading? Every single hand went down. Every single hand. In fact, in my group, there wasn't one person who had been able to unplug for even 24 hours. So I ask you, wherever you are on that spectrum, I want to give you a challenge. You must unplug. So if you can unplug for 24 hours, then you need to do it for 48, and you need to get to that week, and you need to get longer than that week. It's so important. Challenge yourself to increase that rejuvenation time where you really unplug from work. Because this is so good for your teams. Until you stop checking in with your team, you're never going to know what they're capable of. And as team leaders, aren't we contributing to our team's overwhelm? Are you answering your emails day and night, 7 days a week? I know I'm part of this business. I'm a BSC myself. We're on 24/7. We work 24/7, but if we're answering emails all the time to our people, then we are telling them that's what they need to do. And so that's not setting a good example for them. Do you know that more young people today are dying due to career burnout than ever before? It's because we can't unplug from these devices. So we need to make sure that we're not contributing to our team's overwhelm. And we need to get out of our own way if we're not taking care of ourselves, so that we can be sure that we can be the leader that our team needs us to be. So that's point 2. Get out of your own way. So point 3, focus on the important. So it's important now that we focus on what's most important. In your companies, how many of you have goals that you set for the year? Quite a few of you. Great. So if I was to say, what are the top 3 priorities that you're working on as a company right now? Would you be able to tell me what those are right now? What are your top 3 things that you're working on for the year? So many of you are here together as teams. If I were to pull your individual team members aside and I would ask them, what are the top 3 priorities for your company for this year? Would they all say the same thing? Or are we so busy in our industry and in our work putting out fires all the time that we forget to really focus on what's most important? That's so critical. So I want to talk to you about some success strategies today that you can learn to be laser focused so you can work on those most important goals. The first one that I needed to do is I needed to learn to just say no. There's so many good things to be involved in, and I was just stacking my plate so high with so many different commitments because we love to say yes. And as we get more successful in business, people will come and they'll ask us for help, and we want to help them. We'll join this committee or that board, and all of those things are really great. But remember this, everything you say yes to means you're saying no to something else. Another great point to write down, everything you say yes to means you're saying no to something else. I had a friend call me to get together for coffee who I hadn't seen in a long time. She was a business colleague of mine, and I really wanted to get together with her. And I picked up the phone in my office when she called, and I was excited to hear her voice. And she said, when can we get together? And I pulled up my calendar and I started looking. I didn't have any open space anywhere for 2 months, which is just absurd. Because I had things so stacked and organized, I thought, in my calendar. And so here, because I'd said yes to so many other things, I was saying no to something I really wanted to do. So we need to make sure we're focusing on those most important things, and then we're getting our team focused on those things as well. So as part of that process, I developed what I call intentional calendaring, and it's really helped me to be more intentional and focused on the most important things. So I schedule out my calendar now a full year in advance, and I do it based on my most important priorities. And what I start with is that vacation time and taking care of myself, that family time. For me, family is a very important priority. So I look at my kids' school schedule that you can get way in advance, and I put those important events in the calendar. I put that vacation time in the calendar. I send my vacation schedule at the beginning of the year out to all of my team, so they see that I have blocked my vacation time out, that I'm going to unplug, and that sets the example for them to do that same thing too. I put in times for my own development, for my own continuing education, because that's vitally important. I also put in time to volunteer on boards or in my community, because that's an important thing to me as well. And what that leaves then is that business, that work time. And it's amazing how much you can get done in your work time, that idea of compressed time, and how much more efficient that you can be. You can actually achieve more in less time. But you're putting all of those important priorities first, which are so important. We need to improve our focus. This heavy mantle that we carry as business leaders and all of the balls that we juggle, there's a lot of it that's not going to go away because we have heavy responsibility that we carry. So how can we learn to be laser focused during our work time? I really believe that each of us has a focus superpower that we can ignite, and it can shave hours off our work week. It's just important to know what those things are that we need to be focused on first. So we can improve focus and maximize results. So think of focus as something that you can do with ease. Think of something that comes really easy for you, that you can do for a sustained period of time without distractions. Something that's easy for you to focus on. If I was going to say, I'm going to take you to your favorite movie, and you're going to sit down with your bowl of popcorn in your chair, I'm not going to have to say to you, now focus on the movie, right? You're going to be engaged. It's going to be something that you're absorbed in with ease because you like it, because you love it, because it's something that you want to do. So in our work, and you have a flyer at your table about the power of focus, in our work, we want to be finding things that we love to do. And that's what we really want to work and be best at, because that's when we're working with our passion and it meets our purpose, is when we're really doing not only things that we're good at, but that we love doing. And we're just going to be naturally more efficient at those things. And we want to surround ourselves with team members that are also doing this. And the goal is that we want to be working on those things most of the time that we're good at and we love. That's the sweet spot. And then we want to do the same things for our teams so that they're working on things that they love and that they're good at. Because when you're working on those things, time just flies. So if you think about those things that you really love to do, and make sure you're doing those the majority of the time, and then there's going to be things that you loathe to do. So I call it a love and loathe list. We all have those things we loathe doing. Well, our goal is to get those off of our plate. And I used to not be such a good delegator because I didn't want to give somebody something I didn't like to do because I figured they wouldn't like to do it either. But that's just simply not true. We're all wired differently, so something that I don't like to do is going to belong on somebody else's love list. So if you can develop that team with these complementary talents where everybody's spending the most time on the things that they love to do and they're best at, then that time will really fly. So that's important. So once you've decided what those most important things are, then you need to narrow your focus to those most important things. That's what you want to be spending your time on, not fighting those fires and narrowing yourself to those most important things. Then what you need to do is you need to schedule untouchable time to work on those high priorities. So one of the things that I do in my calendar is I actually, in those work time, when I talked about getting to my work schedule, I put in what I call power blocks. And it's actually an appointment with myself that I schedule for usually a 2-hour power block. And that's a time that's in my calendar that's sacred for me to work on those most important priorities. And I share it with others so that they know it. So it's really pretty easy to say you're going to schedule this untouchable time, and it's pretty easy to schedule it, but it's really hard to keep the appointment. And so you need to be disciplined about keeping that untouchable time. You might not be able to do it at your work. Can you have uninterrupted time at your work? Is there a place where you can go and shut the door? If not, there may be a quiet place that you need to find outside of your office to do this. And your team will support you in this because they're going to see how productive that you are, because it's going to make such a difference in your productivity. You're going to maximize your productivity and results. And if you're constantly getting interrupted, whose fault is it? It's ours. Because you're all team leaders. So if you set this disciplined time that you're going to work on the most important priorities, and you're letting your team know that this is what you're going to be doing, and then you go into your office to work on these, and you allow people to continually come in and interrupt you. Oh, hi, can I bother you for just a second? I'm sorry to interrupt. Oh, sure, no problem, come on in. what you need to do is protect that time. And you need to be letting everybody know it. You can just simply say, if somebody's interrupting you in your office, you know what, I'm working on a project right now, and I really want to be able to give you full attention. So can we schedule a time that we can get together? That's all you need to do. That's not being rude, that's not being unavailable. And you're showing your team that you take quiet time to work on your most important things, and they can too. You're teaching them that they can do that as well. And it makes a difference. Did you know that we think between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day? That's amazing. And we're distracted naturally 50% of the time. Our mind is going to be wandering. So we can't stop those thoughts from going. However, we can slow them down. And that's with the discipline of really protecting this priority time. So when I go into these power blocks, this gets put away and it's shut off, and my email is shut off, and I put everything away on my desk except the project that I'm working on, and then I focus on that most important priority. And you can do it too. It works. You can be laser focused on the things that matter, and you can align your team around those most important priorities, and you're going to achieve more in less time. It really works. Okay, well, we've talked about 3 points today. We've talked about how you can live with intention, how you need to lead yourself first. You need to get out of your own way, and how you need to focus on the important. So you can be maybe a little inspired today, maybe you've gotten an idea or two, but now you need to do the work. This is up to you at this point. Because you can be a little bit inspired and you can walk away and do nothing at all, and your life is not going to change. Your work, your productivity is not going to change. You have to do the work. You need to do the work. So I want to take just a moment, and I know that you've hopefully gotten 1 or 2 little takeaways today. So I want you to think about the things that we talked about, and I want you to write down at least 1 action item that you are going to put into place and tell somebody about when you get home. Okay? So we're going to take just a couple minutes to do that. So go ahead and write that down now. So is it about living with intention? Is there some areas where you're living on automatic, where you want to put some focus on and make some changes? Is that what you want to do? Are you stuck? Are you getting in your own way? Do you need to get out of your way to be more successful? Is there something you need to do there? Or do you need to focus on the important? Are you out fighting fires? And are you not focusing on the most important things personally and professionally? What's that action item that you can take? Okay. So now you need to take the first step. And as we close together, I want to share one last piece of advice for you. And as you take this first step, as you begin living your life with intention, I want you to not be afraid of the times that you're going to get stuck and simply fall. Because we're human. We just simply can't do it perfectly. And there's going to be times where we miss that big goal, where we disappoint ourselves, where we fail a loved one. It's just going to happen. But success leads to failure. Failure leads to success. We all fall down. I have certainly had a number of failures personally and professionally. And haven't we learned the most from those times of challenge? Certainly. We can take those times and we can learn to be better. Some of you may have faced some really difficult things. I know that I have in my own life. And they can be a deterrent, but they don't have to overwhelm you. You can learn from whatever's happened, and with an optimistic mindset, you can take it to improve your life and make your life better. It's up to you. You have to take that first step. When my grandson Corbin learned to walk, he was totally not interested in doing this. So when he finally decided he was going to try, we were raving fans to let him do this. So they were over at our house, and his big brother Willem stood Corbin up on his wobbly little legs, and Corbin looked up at me with just a big grin on his face and a grit and determination too. And he decided that it was time. And he lifted one foot very slowly and put it down. And he took that step. And then another step. And a third step. And he fell flat on his bottom. And did we get upset with him for falling? No. We clapped and cheered for Corbin. And he grinned at us and clapped as he had walked. He had made progress. And as you take these steps, there's maybe going to be times that you fall too, but that's progress. You can do the work. It's up to you. The choice is yours, and yours alone, to live your best life. No one can do it for you. It's up to you. So imagine creating and then living the life that you've always wanted. That life of significance, where you're doing what you're designed to do and loving it. This is true success. What are you going to do to live your best life? Thank you.